Welcome. Before we begin, I would like to announce that the family invites you to join them for refreshments straight after the ceremony. And it would be appreciated if you would please turn off your mobile phones at this time. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Charlotte Roulette, and I am a civil celebrant. On behalf of the family of David Marcus and Susan Smith of Lapine Funerals, I thank you for coming to share and honor the memory of Opa, as the family knew him in this ceremony today. A portrait of an artist. Holland, beautiful Holland, birthplace of David Marcus in the year 1921 on the 16th of November near Rotterdam. He was born to David and Loyola, named after his father and one of 5 handsome brothers, Wim, Hobe, Dick, and Jacques, standing Dutch proud and dignified, as you can see in this lovely sepia-colored photograph of the family. The other day, at her father's home, Helena revealed to me with a smile on her face and a twinkle in her eye that her father was mischievous and headstrong ever since he was a lad. The brothers would have to attend the Dutch Reformed Church 3 times a day if they were naughty. Young David was naughty indeed. At church, we would pull the buttons off the jacket for the offering plate and use the coins to play pool with his friends. An average student in many ways except one, David followed in the tradition of the great Dutch masters. He was a brilliant artist. As an infant, instead of a baby rattle, he must have had a paintbrush in his little fist. In fact, his family told me that out of the 5 sons, he was the most trusted with his father's treasured working tools because David took great care and showed much respect for all things in life. Trained as a painter and a decorator, and taking years to qualify, he was highly skilled, deeply passionate, and serious about his work, which is famous Dutch trait, to be sure. He worked painting private homes and ships in dry dock. The ships would later call to him, and their magnitude and importance would unleash his creative spirit and set him sailing and soaring as a painter. David was close to his brothers 5, particularly with the youngest and the last surviving brother, Jacques. Sadly, he could not make the journey to be with us today to honor his brother's memory. Jacques and David shared a very special bond. Both were avid photographers and musicians who found great fulfillment in playing the organ. Their brotherly friendship was an unspoken joy. He met and married his lovely wife, Kobe, in Rotterdam on the 17th of September, 1947. Both were musical. David played the organ and had an extraordinary talent to read music vertically without missing a beat, an art in itself. Kobe played the mandolin, but following the marriage, ceased to play. The couple came to Australia when David was 26 and their firstborn, Los, was just 2 years of age. It was a long and arduous plane trip to finally reach this new country, Australia, they would now call home. Their second daughter, Elena, would arrive a little later. David continued to work as a painter and decorator in Melbourne. He had a loyal client base who appreciated his professional and personal integrity. And as we know, he was an absolute perfectionist, underlined and underscored. For several years, he and his wife Kobe had their own paint shop on Riverdale Road in Camberwell. His extraordinary skill and aptitude for mixing paints was unparalleled. John, his son-in-law, expressed that he had a scientific approach to his craft. He painted not only professionally, but also personally. Copious and magnificent vast canvases at his home studio. Subjects diverse as animals, landscapes, and ships on the water. An impressionist painter, David conquered the Dutch mastery of light and dark. His paintings were larger than life, illuminating, breathtaking, and haunting. And some of his works are here with us today. Here's a sentence from the epilogue in Shakespeare, The Tempest, and I quote, "Gentle breath of yours my sails must fill, or else my project fails. Spirits to enforce, art to enchant. David, you have enchanted us with your life. In art, you enchanted us with your art. In life, you observed on the fringes, but in art, you were set free, soaring high above mediocrity." His work was exhibited at many art shows, including the prestigious Herald Outdoor Art Show, which is an annual event here in the beautiful city of Melbourne. The former Prime Minister, Sir Robert Menzies, acquired his work, and commercial design firms populated his nautical motifs. David expressed his creative soul, his inner emotional self through his works. And with that, he leaves behind a legacy of children, their children, and their children's children, with art and music evident in their lineage and their heritage. I would like to share with you now, on a very personal note, if I may, that I was deeply moved and felt a part of his very special place as his family invited me to really look at their father's work on display, everywhere, on most every wall in their house. Here was a prolific man who could miraculously paint on huge, huge canvases. As we stepped out into the lovely garden that Loyola created years before, now in full bloom on an early summer's day, strangely the bursts of pinks and oranges would pale in comparison to Opa's expression and celebration of nature. He certainly brought the outside in. Truly fantastic. Thank you for allowing me this honor. What kind of man was David? His daughters described him as complex, private, deeply human, difficult, argumentative, and shy. Some would say, and many thought, he was pompous and arrogant, a man who chooses the safety of social isolation. It may have appeared that he was not interested in the rest of humanity, and yet the same man worked hard in a committed way to provide for his family and expressed sentimentality in a way that disarmed them, keeping cards and letters, and treasured photographs of his extended family. That was Opa. You see, he was, in his quiet, unemotional way, very proud of all of them. Indeed, an extension of the pride he felt in everything that he was and all that he did. His car, 11 years old, I believe it had racked up only 50,000 kilometers, immaculately kept, indicative of all we know about him. It is true that he remained aloof, and yet, like many of us that searched with our inner longing to connect with the world, he did the very best he could. Early on in his life, his health was compromised by prothesis, a rare disease. In the late 1970s, he required hip surgery. The surgery was unsuccessful. To be unable to climb a ladder, central to his profession, devastated him and forced him into early retirement. On a positive note, following retirement, he and Kobe learned and enjoyed swimming, and together accomplished competency on many levels. But the fates were not kind. 10 years ago, his eyesight diminished, losing 80% of his sight in one eye. He never painted again. Music befriended him. He returned to play the organ until his hard-working hands were assailed by arthritis, making it once again impossible for him to play. Kobe's death 8 years ago further diminished him. He guarded against showing his deep emotions, but in reality, he too died a little that day. Sadly, he never recovered, and he became increasingly reclusive, no doubt grateful for the support of his family, which endured. I would like to ask his loving daughters, Los and Elena, to share a reading with us. Los?